but I just want to make sure you guys can hear us. Barb is very okay.
Awesome.
Okay, but you can hear me fine, Dan. That's good. Well, let's kind of get rolling. Like I said, this is the third volume of a webinar series that we've started here earlier a few weeks ago. So if you've participated in those other two, great. If not, I will kind of get into a real small recap, and then we'll really get into what we want to talk about today, which is in-home selling and some strategies around that. What the flavor of financing, how does it work? What are some of the words that you can say so you can feel a little bit more comfortable in the home, really is what we try to accomplish here. You're not going to be an expert. I really encourage you, once you get done with some of these types of classes and these different ways of doing different approaches, so to speak, in the home, you have to practice, folks. You can't just wing this, right? You don't want to crash and burn in the home. So we'll talk a little bit about how, again, the words of vernacular and things of that nature. Again, we'll talk a little bit of marketing and financing the GF and promotions that GF is doing, so you kind of get, again, a little bit better understanding how we're trying to support you in this new, well, it isn't really new to the world of home improvement, but sometimes we struggle here with some of the financing and approaches that are available compared to other verticals such as windows and doors and HVAC and that nature. So. And then obviously my contact information, and then we'll do some Q&A. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. We'll take about, 50 minutes, I suppose, have some questions at the end. And then again, if you have questions, use the chat box. Don't be afraid to dive into that and ask some questions. Looks like we maybe lost Janice. Hopefully she gets back on, but that's okay. We'll continue on. And then if you are on, this does qualify for care credits. So let's move on. I'm going to turn off my video here just so we can focus on some of the content. So why offer financing? Okay, let's look at a recap. Some of the things that we talked about in our first volume, on our second volume. The first volume is really the lens of the consumer. We have to start there to kind of understand what they're going through. We reviewed some data. We looked at the different things that are really coming down or down the pipeline, so to speak, in regards to our industry. We talked about the new buyer, the new wave of buyers that are really into using some type of payment to get what they want. And here's some examples. We shared and talked about these earlier in that first webinar. So this is nothing new to the consumer. And so when we asked, and when we do this larger class face-to-face, we really ask you to stop being a roofing contractor and really get into what is it the consumer wants and how they buy in that nature. So we kind of shared some information about that. We looked at some different ads of what's going on with different ads that are available. So you could see appliances, or maybe even this is somewhat indicative of what kitchen remodelings could be looking like, furniture, and then even automobiles, which when you look at any of these, there's no indication of what the cost is. So we take you through a journey of, we got to stop thinking price, right? That's just half the equation. And some customers are okay with that. Okay, I get it, I understand it, I'm going to just pay cash. And I'm not here to change people's culture, but I want you to understand that there is buyers out there that want these options. They want this affordability. And some people think, well, it's just people that don't have any money. No, I would disagree with that, because you look at, okay, a Range Rover, right? Maybe we prejudge and think, well, people that want to buy Range Rovers, no matter what that cost is, 80, 90, 100 grand, there is still a payment tied to that. Because if that wasn't the case, why would they put a payment option on a Range Rover or something of that caliber? Then also you look at the other side of the equation, and again, nothing wrong with an F-150, right? But maybe somebody that's driving an F-150, again, they want options. They want the Platinum or the King Ranch or the better models, because when you see $239 a month, there's probably only one or two of those vehicles on the lot, and then what they do is get you to upgrade. So as we look through the lens of the consumer, we wanted people to understand that people want options, they want affordability, they want choices. So we also got into contractor benefits. This improves your AR, your accounts receivable, meaning when I financed transactions in home, when I was selling in the house, that I always got paid, right? I always got paid on that opportunity. I didn't wait for a customer to think, oh gosh, Greg, there was 9 nails in the yard, I'm not paying you today. Or you guys wrecked my rose bushes, I'm not paying. Or maybe if it's an insurance situation, maybe they spent the money. Now, most of the time they won't tell you that they spent the money. They just will make another objection. And those are pain points we as in our contractor world have to deal with on a daily basis. So when you finance, that tends to reduce that pain, right? It reduces your accounts receivable, so it's probably a little bit more manageable. So we also looked at that. We also looked at cash flow. Cash flow is king in our industry, or not in our industry, but in business. So when you think about the life cycle of a transaction, if I started a project and finished it on a Monday, maybe I'm going to get a labor sheet the next day, right? Okay, now there's an obligation. Depending on when I ordered the product from distribution, I might have an invoice from distribution, and then come that Friday, I've got payroll. So when I get into situations that I get paid quicker, it alleviates some of those issues when it comes to other obligations that I have. So we covered, again, the lens of the consumer, benefits to the contractor, right? We also got into talking about a good, better, best opportunity. And when we look at a good, better, best opportunity and then add some financing, it's amazing when you ask what you get, right? If we go to market with just the same option, okay, here's what insurance will do, and this is what I'll do. Or I go in there with one sample board or no warranty, you're gonna get what you offer for the most part, right? But when you get into a good, better, best, you really get into options and what is called alternative of choice selling. So that's when we start to introduce that right away to start thinking in a good, better, best. We also talked about the fundamentals of financing in our prior webinars as well. We looked at traditional versus consumer. Consumer is really what this is, right? It's real easy, it's fast, it's simple. It's using technology in the home to get a decision for that customer to feel, gosh, I have an affordable option versus I got to stroke a check for 12 grand, right? So it's covering both sides, and it's simple to do, but you have to practice. We also talked about, is there a cost of lending? Absolutely. We got in, we broke down the rate sheet. We looked at the different parts, and here's an example of a Green Sky rate sheet and what it looks like. I know it's kind of hard to read, but that class got into that as well. We also looked at, okay, the cost of goods and how does that cost from financing relate to us, and how we go to market and price things properly. Here's an example of what we went through in our last webinar in the simple math. So it takes a look, okay, I've got a 30% markup versus a 30% margin, and you can see the difference in those costs, okay? So let's get into why we're really here today, and that's the in-home selling piece. And again, my name is Greg Bjornson. I'm the finance program manager, and I spent 9 years selling in a home. So the only reason I share that is not to toot my own horn, please. We're all here together, and I learned from you as you learned from me. But the reason I say that is I worked for an entity that took this very seriously, and there was always a method to the madness, the question behind the question. And our philosophy was, if they're going to buy, why not from me? So some of the things I'm going to share with you today might be, oh my gosh, I could never say that. And that's okay. I'm not, like I said, I'm not here to change your cultures, but I want you to start thinking not only from a finance standpoint and where I need to start planting those seeds from the beginning, but some of the different things I could say, some things like trial closes and maybe return on investment approaches and price conditioning that really, okay, Greg, isn't so much financing, but it helps get to an answer of, am I going to buy from you, and how am I going to pay for it? And that's really the two questions that I'll talk about here in a little bit. So let's talk about, how do I do this? Financing just doesn't start at the close. This starts way earlier in the process, okay? This starts on your websites. This starts on the first initial contact, either face-to-face if you door knock, or on the phone. Example, you're on the phone, you're booking an appointment, and you say, hey, Mr. Bjornson, we look forward to seeing you next Thursday at 2:30, whatever it is. And we've got some great payment options and some other incentives that you may qualify for. And so why do you think I want to say the word may? Use that chat box. Why would I say may qualify for when you think about introducing financing? Janice or Victoria? Any ideas why I'm going to say it that way and kind of have that approach early on in the process? Use that chat box. I'm going to wake up Cyberland, everybody. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to guarantee it. You don't know that it may, because basically in the finance opportunities, the two primary lenders that we currently have, Wells Fargo, Green Sky, really great percentage approvals, meaning they're about 75. Last month they were 77, which is extremely a robust opportunity for us as in the field, meaning 7 out of 10 get approved. So you're absolutely right. So we're going to talk about that whole process, and it starts again way early in the process. Okay, now that you're in the home, you're looking around, you're doing some needs analysis, you're introducing yourself, you're building rapport. You can actually have some things talked about that may shed some light how these people buy. So you're in the home, you're building a rapport. And if you see brand new wood floors or you see a brand new kitchen, talk about it, ask about it. This is really what is called law of reciprocity. You're going to do something nice, and that means you're going to ask about it. Invest in what they're, what this about. Oh my gosh, these are beautiful hardwood floors. Why this color? What kind of wood is it? How long did you think about doing this? And you do this early on in this process, because if you start doing it later on towards the close, sometimes that wall goes up and they're not as forthright with the information. So again, you continue that conversation. How many contractors did you happen to see? Gosh, this is beautiful. How did you go about paying for the project? Had you been thinking about it a long time, right? There's a lot of things that they'll share with you. And I'm not trying to be, misleading in any way. I'm just gathering information and I'm investing. And that really comes from the heart. Gosh, this is beautiful. How did this come to be? Tell me more about it. Because when you do that, back to the laws of reciprocity, then you have the opportunity to present and do some different things, right? You could say something along this. So when you think about this roofing project, is it a matter of if or a matter of when you think about it? And then hear what they say. So it's really about a matter of when. Great. Hopefully we can put some things together and get you scheduled while I'm here today, right? Kind of planting some of those seeds. So again, this is not a perfect example of the sales process map, but it kind of gives you an idea. There's the qualify, the needs analysis. Discovery, you're finding out information about them, and then now it's your turn to present because you've asked about them. Now they're going to listen and hopefully listen to what you have to say. And then you get to the proposal, and I'll talk about that. We're going to get into the words and how you go about saying that, and then ultimately the close. So I'd said this a little bit earlier. You have to get really two questions answered when you look at getting an opportunity to close a great opportunity. So think about, what do you think those two questions might be? And I'm going to move on because it's a little hard to just put this in the chat box. But you need to find out, are they going to select you? Are they going to choose you, right? Is it me? And how are they going to go about paying it? And you can find out that information earlier in the process when you ask about, another project, right? And maybe, that maybe not present itself. Maybe they didn't do a kitchen or something, but hopefully there's something you can look and ask about those questions to give you a little bit of information, or simply early in the process say, when you think about this roofing project, how did you think about going about paying for it? Were you do some cash? I know insurance is involved with this, but were you pay cash, or were you looking at some payment options that we have? Okay, so you want to get those two questions answered. Now, in that process, you're going to also find out a little bit about the customer and what type of buying customer are they. So think about it this way. There's really three that you have to look at. There is a cash buyer, right? I think about my father and my parents. I grew up in a home where if you didn't pay cash for something, you didn't earn it, right? You didn't deserve it. And so, but as this new generation that has kind of gotten into more of a payment option scenario, it's really affected everybody. And that's why I say everybody's a new buyer from a consumer standpoint. So even with my father, if I was in front of him and looking to be an in-home sales opportunity, I'd say, Mr. Bjornson, thanks so much for sharing that. In fact, love the fact that you want to go about this paying cash, and we could sure do that. But, if I didn't at least do my job and share with you how financing might benefit you, I have that opportunity to kind of go over that with you real quick. So you basically share with them that maybe they want to use 12 months, same as cash, right? Maybe they didn't know that works. So what you're trying to do is avoid a no at the end, when simply it was that they didn't really want to part with $12,000 or $10,000 or whatever the project cost was. So even in a cash buyer, not to say I'm not going to take a check, right? In my business, I took a check all day long, but I'm at least going to help them realize that they have options, right? And people appreciate that. Then you have a payment buyer, right? And that's really kind of where we get into a lot of this payment options is, hey, I just can't afford that amount of money. And then our data that we shared in our prior webinars, it shows not a lot of people can come up with $2,000 or $1,000 or even $500 to make this go, even in an insurance situation. So there's that payment buyer. And then the third one is really what I call is a bridge opportunity. And it really opens the door to overcome an objection such as this. No, Greg, I love everything you're doing. However, I'm going to get some money down the road through whatever, an inheritance or a trust, or my parents are getting me some money later, but I don't have it at this point. So I'll let you know when I get that. Or they have the typical one would be, I'm going to go to my bank, which is completely fine. However, you lose control at that point. And typically what happens, you follow up whenever you set that date, and most are weak at best when they do this, where they say, well, follow up with me in 2 weeks. You follow up in 2 weeks, and what has happened? Absolutely nothing when it comes to them going to their bank. So really how you approach it is, well, great, that's a great opportunity. You're going to get some money through whatever, or you're going to go to your bank. Let's work on two fronts, folks. We can get you on the schedule today. It doesn't take long to get the financing put together, the payment options put together. And then when you get to that point, when you're ready to get that other money or get that bank financing, you can pay off this transaction or this financing at any time with no prepayment penalty. And then you get the project started versus you having to wait. All right, so it kind of tries to get you to overcome a payment objection, or not a payment objection, but an objection where somebody says, I want to go to a bank, or I'm getting money later. So how we do this, right? So again, now we've kind of moved through the cycle. We've had some needs analysis. We've built some rapport. We maybe asked about other home improvements that they've done. You can get into some price conditioning, which I'll basically show you real quick. I don't think this will work. I'm going to pull this in here. Hopefully you can see this. So price conditioning is a great opportunity for customers to really get a feel of what the cost is with a project, right? So I don't know if anybody has ever used cost versus value that's on our call today, but I used it a lot. It gives people the idea to see, okay, what does a roof cost, right? Or what does any really major project cost? And Cost versus Value by Remodeling Magazine helps you with that. Now, you can actually pick it by region. You could pick it by state. Right, you can click, or by city. You can get real granular, I guess, so to speak. Excuse me. And then you can go down the list here. And okay, let's take a look at roofing for just a moment. Now, a few of you might say, oh my gosh, right? This is all relative, right? But this number that you're looking at for the Southwest region is $19,463. This is based on 30 squares, and this data is in this document. And you can print this out when you go to costversusvalue.com, and you can get it per your city. Large major cities, there's some other, you're not going to get a real small town that's that detailed. But my point with this, it's 600 per square, right? Some now, again, this is all relative. When I say 600, in some parts of the country, like, oh my gosh, that's craziness. Some are like, oh my gosh, that's craziness. That's not enough, right? So it's all relative. My point with this is usually it's going to take a look at, if it's higher, right, than what you're typically in, that's a good thing. And that's usually the case. So that's one side of that equation. The other side of the equation, it's going to look at, okay, job cost, as you see in the black line, resale value, and cost recouped. So when you look at this, again, this is just using for, giving them an idea what things cost. The number on the very right, the 64%, is what you're going to recoup in the cost of this roof replacement back on the home value. So it's something you take a look at. If you've never used it, it's something that you can help with price conditioning. So now we're getting into the simple process or the proposal workflow, and you want to be strategic about this. Now, when we are looking at, let me go back up just a second here. When we're looking at this process right here, one thing I want to encourage you to do is take some time and maybe look at having some type of process in your organization. I don't care if you're 1099 sales reps or W-2, maybe craft out some basic process so you can help your salespeople be more successful. There's a ton of stuff out there. Here at GAF, we're really taking a look at growing some type of in-home sales in a box, stuff that you can take a look at. We'll hopefully have that ready for you sometime in 2019. But I kind of jump ahead a little bit because I want you to start thinking in those lines that, hey, I need to be a little bit better stewards of how I approach my sales process so I can help my salespeople be more successful. So this is part of that process, and one part of it is a recap. So thanking the customer for the opportunity and then reviewing the project. So I'm going to role play this here in a little bit, but that would be one of the first sections that you'd start with when you're at the close, okay? And then it's going to get into present a monthly payment as the project cost. I would start with that, okay? Looks like this timberline with this warranty and all these little things you're going to build value and talk about. It's $180 a month or $10,000, right? You're going to show both, and I typically encourage you to lead with the payment first, okay? And it still doesn't mean that it's going to change the outcome. I'm still going to be okay with accepting a check, right? It still isn't going to take away some objections that you know, maybe they want a better price, or maybe they want to pay via credit card. Again, it doesn't take all that away. It just helps them get into what is called alternative of choice selling. So I'm going to make it a little bit broader here in a minute. So here's an example of just even if it was one offer with one monthly payment. Okay, you see it's $159 a month or $10,000, which is more affordable for you, and you shut your mouth, right? So again, it still doesn't change they can pay with a credit card, right? Still doesn't change that they can you do better on the price, you know, and then you ask them, is it payment or price that what you know that you're looking for? And usually in our worlds, we're real good about giving stuff away, and that's not what we want to do because we want to protect our margins, and then thus reviewing a good, better, best. And so if somebody says, hey, I love this one, but I don't want to pay that, then you can go into you know, a drop opportunity, you know, in the good, better, best sales arena. So I'll talk about that here in a minute as well. Then we'll get into, you know, if you want to write a check, right? Again, the great thing about financing and payment options is it gives them a choice. Because let's be honest, all our competition will take a check or cash as a form of payment, right? We get that. So we want to make sure that we're a little bit different, and knowing, as we learned in our prior webinars, there's a lot more buyers coming into the marketplace that are real open to payment options. So we kind of talk about the conversation, and I'm going to get into role player in a minute, but we do a recap. Then we do an offer, and I'm going to kind of role play a good, better, best scenario. But then we got to make sure that we manage declines. We talked a little bit earlier about, well, what happens if there's a turn down? I get, you know, 7 out of 10 will get approved. And really, when I say those numbers, that means everybody that you get an opportunity to have a sales conversation with or a roofing opportunity, you want to offer financing. When you start to pick and choose who you feel needs financing, you're going to see, unfortunately, the approval percentage drop, and then you're going to have more declines, and then it's going to be frustrating. So that's kind of a little more food for thought. But when you get into how do you manage declines, it simply could be something along the lines of, you know, great, thank you for choosing, you know, Greg Bjornson Roofing. We're going to do a great job. I know you picked this financing option here or this payment option here. Before we get into that, you know, the banks have a lot of crazy things that happened since 08 and 09, and I can't always guarantee who gets approved or not. But in the event that this doesn't go through, and I'm not saying you're going to be that case, but if it didn't go through, what would plan B look like? So you can talk about it before it gets to running the application, because typically what happens if you don't have a conversation about it first, when you run the application, and usually somebody will say, no, I got great credit, don't worry about it, right? Or they don't say anything, and who knows what their outcome will be. Nonetheless, you want to talk about it first, because when it happens and you don't talk about it, it really diminishes your opportunity to talk about a plan B at that point. It's like all the air is let out of the room. So I encourage people just to have a brief conversation about, you know, if this didn't go through, you know, what would plan B look like? Oh, instead of doing the best, I might do the better, or I might just do, you know, the good, right? And some people have said to me, oh, Greg, I don't feel comfortable saying that or asking that. And what I say to them, that's in their mind, right? Most people, as long as you're you know, professional about how this works, they're real open and feel good that you've been open about it. So that's a plan B. So if you do get a decline, the first thing you want to recommend is or a decline, or what is called a pending, is pick up the phone and call the lender immediately, because here's why. There's been so much identity theft in the market the last few years. What has happened is people have had what is called credit locks, things on their credit where, you know, to protect them. And when this is ran in the home, this approval or this, you know, decision, sometimes it'll come back denied or pending based on that alone. So you want to pick up the phone, call Green Sky if that's who you have, or call Wells Fargo, because what they'll say is, hey, let me talk to the customer. And if there was a lock, that customer has to verbally allow them to run the credit. So that's just kind of something you want to be mindful of, that there could be an opportunity that you're missing if you didn't pick up the phone. Okay. So again, we talked about this map, this sales process. I encourage you to go out there and have something put together with your sales folks. And even if it's real simple, and even here at GAF, we can help with that. So when you look at even something as simple as ketchup, right? I know this is kind of silly, but there isn't just one ketchup in the home or in the grocery store. There is options, right? And so now I'm going to start introducing a good, better, best, because even at GAF, we have a good, better, best scenario. Okay, we have all kinds of options, even in our warranty scenarios. Now, depending if you're an ME or CE, that might change a little bit, but there are options and people want them. So let's look at build your own good, better, best. So I'm going to role play this here in a minute, just real simple and a simple approach. It's more about getting used to saying the words. Like I said before, it isn't going to change the fact that I could still get an objection. You know, somebody could still say to me, Greg, I want to get, you know, 3 more bids or 3 bids. And I kind of tongue in cheek say that, isn't a good, better, best kind of like 3 bids? So, you know, there's some psychology there. And does anybody have an idea? I'm going to ask the group, when you look at the good, better, best, or some people say, hey, Greg, say it best, better, good, because you want to start with the best first. Some have even said, and I learned this from a contractor earlier this year, he doesn't say the word good, he says economy. I'm like, well, that's a great way to look at it, because who wants economy, right? Still, you know, a good opportunity, Mr. and Mrs. whoever. The insurance is going to take care of, you know, majority of this, but it's really kind of more of an economy. And then here's our better, best, or however you want to say it. So let me ask you, when you would just simply, you know, I want you to go to your chat box and think about this. When you see a good, better, best, what do you think the percentage of sales land in those 3 opportunities? So take a look and just think, okay, how many would in a percentage fall in the good, the better, or the best? Anybody have any ideas what they think that would look like? Any idea what you think it might be? Janice, Victoria, Jackie, Dan? Right, Victoria, you're in the ballpark. So that's really what you end up seeing. And this isn't our numbers, this is finance numbers, this is High Rev Pro, right? I would agree with Victoria's range is rough. Yeah, absolutely, Dan. That's kind of what you see by simply asking, right? You miss 100% of the shots you never take. So if I've always gone to market with one option, I'm always going to get that option or a version of it, either a yes or no, right? But when I get into a good, better, best, this is the data that we've seen that basically gets you to having a better opportunity to sell better margins, right? Have better cash flow because I've got bigger ticket items going, better average tickets and whatnot. So I'm going to erase. Okay, so we're going to move on here. So here's kind of getting back to that workflow process, recap, and then offer a monthly payment. So let's look at a scenario. Okay, I'm going to use this. Here's a simple recap. Okay, I'm going to bring my camera back on so you kind of see what I'm going to do here, so you can see some of what my facial expressions or whatever. I just think it's a little bit more impactful. So before I actually would offer or get into my offer, I have to prepare my offer, right? I have to kind of get my proposals ready in a good, better, best. So it would be simply saying, hey, Janice, I'm just going to take a few minutes. We've covered a lot of information. I'm going to put together some of the things that we talked about. In fact, I love the fact that you did some research in regards to what this looks like. So based on what we've talked about and some of the systems that we looked at, I'm going to take a few minutes to prepare that, right? But in the meantime, here's something. I know we were playing around with the Remodeler app, right? And I'm going to hand them an app. I don't know if you guys use the Remodeler app that's available through GAF. That's one thing that I would share to them. Or maybe you can say, you know, Janice, here's some testimonial letters that we have from our happy customers that love what we do. Or I've also used things like, here's a map of some of the work we've done in your area, and you can have this created real easy on Google Maps, where it shows a pin on a map where you've done work, right? It shows the validity of who you are in the business and the market. Why do you think I'm giving them something to do while I prepare the opportunity? Why do you think I want to do that? Anybody have an idea? Janice, Jackie, Dan, Victoria? I want to give them something to do. So one, they're not just so focused on me in the price, and I have nothing to hide, but it just gives them something to do, to be, you know, if they were playing around with the Remodeler app and they were putting shingles on, it might spark a different idea in their mind. Gosh, I didn't really, you know, I want to really look at this shingle again. I want to look at this sienna. Okay, so it gives them something to do in regards to when you're preparing the proposal. I'm not turning my back and hiding anything. I'm full disclosure, but I want to have them something to do. So now it gets back to, hey, Janice, great. I got everything kind of put together, and really got some great, exciting systems that we're going to put together based on, you know, some of the things we talked about and some of the things that, you know, we're real excited about. And you know, I know we're loving the fact that we've been in business a long time and that we're a master elite with GAF. I can explain that. And I love the fact you did some research about that earlier. And we talked about this warranty and yada. You're doing a recap, right? That whole recap of some, it's not reselling, it's just a recap of some of the highlights that were really important to them, okay? And then it basically gets into something great. So you're looking at, and you have it in front of them, you say, I've got this, the Glenwood, and that's 11,000 or 172 a month or 173, right? I'm always going to round it up a little bit. And again, that comes with the Golden Pledge. We talked about the 25-year workmanship and some of the advantages and the great things that covers, a little bit more peace of mind. And then I know you were excited about the Sienna, and that's 8,500 and or 133 a month. And that comes with the Silver Pledge. It's not 25 years, but it's 10, still has some workmanship coverage there. And then more of the economy, which is still a good opportunity, but just slightly better what you have. And again, if this is even in a storm market or not, this is kind of where you could start with saying, you know, it's kind of the entry level system. Even though insurance isn't going to give you the best of the best, this gives you a little bit better opportunity what insurance will do. And that comes with the System Plus. That's 7,500 or 118 a month, 18 a month. Which one works best for you? And you basically shut your mouth. Okay, that's a good, better, best, flavored in with some payment options. Now this just happens to use a 9.99 plan, 96 months. We will help you craft out some different opportunities. We don't want you to go through all the different financing plans that a lender has, because there's different ones in there. We try to help you focus on 3. Maybe there's a 0 for 12. This 9.99 longer term stuff, that's really been advantageous for customers to look at, okay, a payment buyer. And then you can maybe pick something middle in the road, and maybe that could be used either there or with a cash buyer or a payment buyer, but maybe some of that bridge type buyer. So what I encourage you to do is, when you get a chance, go back to your offices and your salespeople and you being a salesperson, and practice this just simple approach. do a recap, right? Give them something to do, then do a recap, then do your better best. And then at this point, it would be if they chose whatever, let's say they picked the better at $133 a month. Then I'm going to say, great. Welcome to Greg Bjornson's Roofing. We're going to do you a great job. Before I run the application through the credit, the banks get a little crazy. Sometimes this doesn't always come to be, but in the event that it doesn't go through, what would plan B? How else would you approach this if that didn't go through, right? Again, I'm doing that first because if it does come up at the time of I run the application and it's a turn down, I want to know potentially what plan B. And sometimes you'll even get where they'll say, oh, Greg, that was my only plan. Okay, fair enough. Let's see what we can do. Hopefully we can get this worked out. Okay, so that's kind of when you get into a good, better, best with payments. Again, to recap the recap, give them something to do when you're doing the proposal. Do a recap. It's not a resale. It's just highlight some of the things that you guys were really excited or they were really excited about. Do your proposal, your offer. Start maybe with your, with the best and work your way down with a payment, and then listen to what they have to say. Some people say, hey, Greg, that's like having 6 bids. I've got my good, better, best with 3 payments, right? So something that's available out there today is called HighRev Pro. And this is a tool that we have available through our Tools for Success that helps with all these different things. It helps with the math part that we talked about in our prior webinar. It also talks about how I can forward face, right, with my customer, taking my tablet and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, here's your best, better, basic, how he has it here. It has the GAF flavors in it, and it really keeps it nice and clean, and you can private label this. You can put your own logos on it, and it comes in 2 versions. And I just got an email from the owner, Brad Corbin, yesterday, and he says, Calculate is free, right? I'm going to give it free for everyone. Now, the Calculate version is something that's really contractor facing, helps you with the math and make sure you get your good, better, best correct with the financing options. That's great. The Elite, which is customer forward facing, is something that is free for 30 days, and then they've got some different prices depending on how many users. But I would encourage you to look at something like that. Again, we talk about all these different tools and these approaches. Maybe this could help you out. I encourage you to reach out to HighRev Pro and Brad Corbin. He's absolutely there to help you out. So again, we talked about build your good, better, best. That's what I encourage you to do when you get back to your office. Think about that with a warranty strategy tied to it, and then just see what happens. Like, remember the data that I shared you, 50 and over 20% land in the better, best. What would that do for your business and with cash flow and better margins? And then you have to role play it. Get your people used to that. And I'd rather have them crash and burn in the office than in the home, because that's the right thing to do, right? Think about if I had some of my sales reps that were going to go see a family member of mine, I wouldn't want to just throw them to the wolves or have them crash and burn, not only for the sales rep, but for, the customer. That's not fair to them, right? So that's why we encourage that kind of thing. So we talk a lot of different things, good, better, best strategy. You can even just leverage one financing plan. If I at least get you to do that, you can then get comfortable and better. And then next thing you know, you're getting your good, better, best, and maybe you're doing different financing plans for different opportunities in the good, better, best type sales approach. And it truly drives higher ticket sales. And at the end of the day, I'm all about looking at the audience, and that would be consumers want choices. Promotions. Well, before we move on to any questions on any of that, was that hard to say? Is that, you're probably going, Greg, that was easy. And it really is. Sometimes we just have it so, bigger in our mind than it actually is. So think about, if there's something else you want to ask about, go ahead and type it in. But when you think about some of this stuff, it really does give you a better opportunity in the home in front of the customer. And I wouldn't even be doing this if it was a situation where it was a negative for our customers. So think about this. Financing, sometimes people think the negative connotations that financing may or may not be. I don't want to do that. I don't want to get a customer into financing. But think about this. You're not asking them to finance a vacation. I've even heard data that people finance concert tickets, right? That kind of stuff I'm probably not real excited to encourage. I'm not excited to encourage somebody to go to their 401k, right? But when you think about, you are helping them improve one of the biggest purchases of their life. It's an appreciating asset versus like a car, which is a depreciating asset. This is a win for the customer. And so when they pick better systems and they pick peace of mind and affordability, that not only starts with them first, and then the trickle down starts with you, and that's a win, right? And I'm not a big cliche guy, but this is a win-win when we have these types of opportunities. But like I said in the beginning, if they're gonna write me a check, and I did a good job at least explaining, here's your options. I didn't know if you knew this, Mr. Bjornson, you could take that 12 grand and spread it over 12 months, whatever that case is. But if they decide to write me a check, I'm still taking the check, right? Janice, what question do you have here? What if the homeowner only wants to finance their insurance deductible? That's a great question. I encourage you to start with the whole ticket and kind of just keep it to that. And here's why. It's I'm not trying to hide anything, but as you know, there's a cost of financing, right? So if I had $1,000 or $2,000 deductible, first, my opportunity to that customer is always going to be slightly better than what insurance would do. So I will go through my exact amount. Even if I haven't met the adjuster, I'm going through that. That's how we did it in my world. And I'm going through that and I get X. And I kind of explain, okay, how this all works. I'm going to do a little bit better than what that is. Because if you were going to do just the deductible, you've got to have some upgrades built in there. Explain to them, this is a great opportunity, Mr. and Mrs. whoever, to use insurance to get a little bit better opportunity and get what you want, not what insurance is going to allow you to do. And why you want to do that is because if you just do deductible only, you're going to have to say, okay, well, it's $2 grand on the paperwork. This is what the insurance paperwork says. You're going to have to be a little bit more than that because there's a cost of financing. So again, I'm not trying to hide anything, but I want to use the opportunity for the affordability to get something a little bit better than what insurance does. If you at least do that, it's a little bit more palatable for the consumer. However, to really make sure it's impactful, do the whole opportunity and finance the whole thing. So if they do have insurance proceeds coming, a couple things they have the ability to do. They could go ahead and apply it right to the loan, no prepayment penalty, right? Or again, if they wanted to pay something else off with that insurance money, that's so be it. We supplement a lot on claims to get the homeowner more money. If we just offered finance, would we still have supplement for the insurance? Another great question. Yes. Okay. In my world, did I supplement? Yes. Here's the dynamic though. I found myself getting that fight, right? And we can always think about that whole process of supplement within insurance is not a fun process, right? Brad Corbin and I, we talk about this. We've probably broken enough cell phones in our day, just that whole frustration of dealing with insurance company around that whole world of supplements. And what I found out when I really got better with financing is I didn't have to beat that up so much. I had more effort in my sales process and in my training because my margins I got right from the beginning, okay? So that's kind of what happened, but here's truly what's happening in our industry. The insurance world is changing, and I saw my first ACV only policy last Thursday. I'd been hearing about it, but I hadn't seen one, and I saw that for the first time. True, 27 squares, $9,800 give or take off from memory, and the customer was getting $3,800 back. No joke, right? That was it. So no depreciation back, no less deductible. They were getting about $3,800 back. What is a customer that doesn't, may not have $6 grand to come to that $9,800? A couple things it's going to do. It's going to drive more financing, right? That's going to happen. Now, it's not happening across the country, but this is starting to creep around as the insurance world is changing. And it's going to get those contractors that are eating deductibles, that are Chucks in the trucks, right? Pete's in the pickups, all the ones that give us some of our bad reputation, right? Those are going to start to weed out because there's no way they can hide that big a spread. So That's kind of how I look at it from a supplement and just some more food for that, what's going on in the insurance world. Any other questions on anything? As I'll go on here, go ahead and type some things in. I'm just going to talk about a little promotions. There's actual collateral that's available that you can get through the CCZ. Your territory managers can actually help you out with this. This is basically an FAQ that is called business, B2C, business to consumer. You know, what are some of the questions and some of the answers that a customer may have that around financing? And this is really a good tool. It does two things. It helps your consumer. And then if you have sales reps that are not versed in this world of financing, there's a lot of good information on something like that. So I encourage you to get some of those pamphlets. Even your lenders, and hopefully if you haven't chose a lender yet, you know, here's a couple opportunities through GAF and Green Sky and Wells Fargo. There's consumer flyers there and contractor flyers that help you understand this a little bit more. We're also recognize that we want to incent you for doing a great job with financing as well. So this year we came up with a rebate. And if you're not versed with it, basically here's how it works. If you have financing through Wells Fargo Green Sky, through our platform, and it's $8,000 or more, we're going to rebate you depending on what warranty that you offered. And again, that's such key. If I'm going to go down this road of financing, and it increases average tickets by 25%, increase my closing rate by 25%. Use warranties, peace of mind, so those customers get a better system, and we're going to recognize you for that. All you do is register that warranty like you normally would, right? You go to the GF Rebate Center. There's the website, and in about 8 to 10 weeks, the owner of the company will get to check. Now, I'll be right up front. That's owner's money. I, however, seen some owners do this. Use it as a spiff for their salespeople, right? That's a great opportunity. I've even seen some owners say, hey, you know what? I wanna give that money back to the homeowner, and I've seen that happen as well. So that's the rebate that's currently, it was just extended through the end of the year. So that's exciting news. We're having a lot of traction with this. And for CEMEs, you can take advantage of it. What other questions that you may have? Is HighRev Pro Calculate free for Master Elite? It's free for everybody. Great question, Janice. It is free, and that just happened, like I said, from Brad. I got an email yesterday about that. His Elite is free for 30 days. But I highly encourage you to talk to Brad. He is a roofer from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You know, he's one of us. He speaks the language. He's been in the home plenty of times, and came up with this platform of, you know, he was sick of struggling, or sick of seeing his sales rep struggle with just the presenting part and missing things, and, you know, coming up short, and then go, gosh, can you still pay me, right? That whole pain for a sales rep. He kind of helped with that and developed this platform. Is let's see here, Janice. I'm trying to register and it wants to bill $30 a month. Let me do this. If you guys can bear with me just a second. I'm going to pull up the email. Right? I just got this. I'm going to let you into my world here. If it will let me stop my share. Okay. I'm going to pull this up real quick. Bear with me, because I'm going to give you some codes that you guys can use. So hang on. Just bear with me. I want to get you these codes because he just sent them out. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to share my screen again. Can you guys see that? So basically, here's the information. So the Calculate, you register, just put in the promo code free for all caps. And then the Elite is the promo code EVS18. EVS18. Everybody get that? Hopefully you did. So I encourage you to take a step at look. Okay, great. Thanks, Victoria. I encourage you to take a look at different kind of outlines of a sales approach for your sales reps. You know, in my world, we did a trial close, and basically after I did my rapport and built some trust and likability, I'd say, you know, I'll use Janice again. Hey, Janice, have you seen a high-performance roof system up close before? Have you had that opportunity to look at stuff like that? And usually they look at me cross-eyed going, what did you just say? High-performance what? The guy that was in here before, or gal, didn't talk about it. I just saw a sample board and he's whatever, right? So it kind of flushes out some things, gets them to think a little different that, one, you are different. You're not like everybody else, okay? And then I basically would say, hey, Janice, did you just mind if I share with you how at Greg Bjornson Roofing, you know, we conduct our appointments here, so you kind of get into just, you know, our time together. And everybody says, yeah, go ahead, tell me, how's it work? Well, basically, Janice, I have 4 jobs. My first job is to find out what your needs are. And we've already started that process. And again, I love the fact you've done some research, and I'll kind of just help you a little bit more connecting some dots, but yet at the end of the day, I want to make sure we put some things together that really what you want. My second job is going to share a little bit about who we are at Greg Bjornson Roofing in, you know, 3 or 4 minutes, because there's going to be differences between us and everybody else, and those differences will be important to you. My third job is you're going to feel, touch, what is it that I'm going to do to your house? You know, that's an assumptive close, by the way. But I want them to know that, you know, I'm going to show them these things, right? So Janice, I'm going to show you, you're going to, you know, what's the underlayment look like, the shingles, you get to feel and touch all that. Plus, I'm going to get in your attic to kind of take a look at the ventilation as well, you know, and I'm assuming the other guy did that as well. And they'll usually look at you and go, no. Anyway, so you can kind of kill your competitions. And then my last job, Janice, is I'll ask for an order. You know, if you like what you see and you trust Greg to do the work, great, we go ahead and get things started while I'm here today. And that's usually when I get my first no. And that's okay, right? And if I got that first no, it would be simply, you know, Janice, I appreciate being upfront with me, because I'm going to be just as upfront with you. I can assure you I can take a no just as graciously as a yes. All I ask is just have an open mind, and that at the end of our time, you be the judge. Fair enough? Great, let's get started, right? So however you do a trial close, you can use versions of that. Here's why we did it. It makes my sales rep ask for the business. And it helps the customer know that I'm going to ask for the business. They already think that's going to happen, and we don't do a very good job in our industry, where sales reps will just say, okay, well, let me know, you know, I'll email you the bid, whatever, right? So it just gets you to be better stewards. Here's some of the new, or not new, but the next steps with our webinar series. Again, this series is 5 classes. The next one will be Why Wells Fargo on September 7th. And then September 21st will be Why Green Sky, and we have representatives from those 2 entities that will be on, talk about the technology and some of the nuances that, you know, make them great, things of that nature. So that's coming up, and then we're going to repeat this series again here later in the fall. That's my information. Please reach out to me. I can help in any way I can. I'm going to be out in Southern Cal, well, actually LA, right, and San Diego area next week. And I'm excited to have that opportunity to meet some of the folks out there and help them get a little bit more versed in this world of financing when it comes to in-home selling and all the things that go with it. Any other questions that you may have, please. Barb, I don't know if you want to open up the phone line. Let's see if I can do that too. Because you can maybe just ask a question via audio. Audio options, let's see here. No.
Okay, you're muted.
Anybody have any questions? Oh, thanks, Barb, for putting that on there.
So your lines are open too if you want to.
Yeah, anybody have any questions? Jackie or Janice? Victoria? Dan? Anything? Well, we are right up at the top of the hour with a minute to spare. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you and share some of this insight. It really will be impactful for your business. And good luck to you, and have a great rest of the day and a great weekend. weekend. Thank you.